I'm just going to do the welcome, and then I'll hand over to the team who are going to talk you through the presentation and bring you up to speed on this exciting opportunity for the Midlands region. I know from the list of attendees that quite a few of you already know who the Hub are and what we do, but there are some new names on there. So just for the benefit of those, a little bit of background on the Hub for context. The Hub's been up and running since 2018. Nottingham City Council act as our accountable body. We're fully funded by the Department for Energy Security Net Zero, previously BEIS. And we've been working successfully across the Midlands region to develop energy projects and programmes in line with the local enterprise partnerships energy strategies. We've grown significantly over the last 4 years to respond to the need, and are now delivering a range of projects and programmes that exceed our initial remit. What that does mean is we've got a really nice set of projects that are running that complement each other really very nicely, of which this feeds into. So, for example, we've been supporting the skills training competitions on behalf of the department that have been looking to upskill the workforce in retrofit activity. We've been also supporting the department on a programme that's looking at the enforcement of minimum energy efficiency standards across the private rental sector. And we've also secured significant funding for retrofit at scale across the Midlands region on a number of different retrofit programmes, working in partnership with our local authorities, among other stakeholders. So this kind of fits into quite neatly those are the programmes that we're running. So it's really nice to be able to bring this opportunity forward and explore how we can continue to support retrofit activity in the region. So really excited to hear how this is going to progress, both from us, but also from the ideas that will be put forward into this competition, and see what can be done to support this moving forward. So I'll pass over to Jack, who's going to talk you through the presentation. So Jack, over to you.
Brilliant, thanks ever so much, Michael. Yeah, so I'm going to quickly go through the demonstration so everybody is aware. We'll be sharing all of the slides and the recording at the end of the webinar, and then afterwards as well we'll be compiling together any questions asked with all of the answers. If we're not able to answer any questions here and now as well, we'll be adding to that document, and that'll be a live document which is hosted on our website, so hopefully there'll be the opportunity to ask questions and then get the answers back even if we're not able to answer straight away. What we're planning on doing, there's a Q&A function within this presentation, so ask questions throughout this presentation. Should only be 5-10 minutes of the presentation, and then we'll have an extended question and answer session at the end for everybody to really kind of answer any of those burning questions that people have. But I will get started. So, as Michael's already touched on, net zero hubs, there are 5 net zero hubs across England. We fall across the Midlands, which is Greater Lincolnshire, so South Humber, Greater Lincolnshire coast, right the way across through Leicestershire, Derbyshire, Nottinghamshire, Coventry and Warwickshire, Stoke and Staffordshire, the Black Country, Birmingham, Solihull, Worcester and Worcestershire, and then ending up across Herefordshire, Telford and Wrekin, right on the Welsh border. So huge area, lots of different geographies within that area as well. We have coastal, we have heavy industry, like I mentioned in South Humber, but also in the Black Country. We have big urban areas as well, such as Birmingham and Nottingham, Coventry, as well as lots of large rural spaces as well. So we are in a particular position where we have a really wide variety of topography across the Midlands. So this fits in very nicely with who we are and how we run. To give you a bit of a policy context about where this programme itself is going to sit within what the department is pushing forward, there is a digital service already launched on the .gov website around energy efficiency and finding ways to save energy within your home. That's included within the website, and the telephone service has launched this month as well, that the details of which are all on the website for people to be able to go and access. So if you are interested in what the website looks like, what the telephone service looks like, you're able to do that through the website and gain a bit of more of an understanding from there. This, however, is an in-person programme specifically. It's 2 years, so the projects will be expected to launch in June 2023 and then deliver through to the 31st of March 2025. There will be projects in all of the hub regions. As I mentioned before, we're focusing in on the Midlands here, and there'll be a funding of up to £2 million per project. Now that is split across the 2 years, so it'll be £1 million first year, £1 million for the second year, and that is the maximum project value. We'd like a range of project values, coming up with new and innovative solutions and ways to engage with local stakeholders and local provision. And all of the projects must be committed to good quality evaluation. This is a demonstrator programme. We're hopeful that a lot of these programmes will show us new and exciting ways of engaging in energy efficiency across our region, across England, and in wider. Aims and objectives of this. Some of these are listed from the core project, so if you have got any questions, do feel free to add them in. But the idea is to trial a range of approaches to really understand what in-person advice is possible at a local level, and really get to those hard to reach areas which perhaps haven't seen that energy advice so far. We're looking to provide end-to-end support from the initial inquiry right the way through to the installation of retrofit measures, and provide specific support and education for either, like I say, hard to treat properties or hard to treat homeowners, and how that is then replicated and how we continue to offer that support throughout England through past the programme delivery end date. So as I mentioned, the two strategic themes there are the hard to reach consumers, and there's a list there of what that might look like. So people like the off-gas grid community, non-native English speakers, disabilities. How do we engage those hard to reach users in a substantial manner? And then also the hard to treat properties, so conservation areas, different types of construction, again off-gas homes. How do we engage them in this conversation, because it's really vital that they also get the advice. Quite a large scope, so we quite like to see a lot of detail around energy efficiency, clean heating measures, how that works and how that interconnects, and how the interconnect there between different types of government schemes as well, and the potential eligibility for people in them. And then, as mentioned before, that specific support for hard to reach properties as well. And then out of scope, so general energy saving advice that is covered predominantly from website, and that is already up and running. Assistance around paying bills, switching energy providers are all out of scope, because that is touched on and covered by other users already in the marketplace as well. To give you a bit of an idea around what the responsibility and roles are from successful launch, there will be a grant funding agreement which will outline what the programme will look like, and that will be done through a co-design with ourselves. We come together with that contract. There'll be a data sharing agreement to understand exactly what data will be shared from participants to yourselves, to us, to BEIS, and outline exactly what the data flow will look like throughout all of this. And then grant recipients also need to confirm proposed approach to subsidy control regime as well. As I mentioned before, it is a demonstrator programme. The idea is around innovation, evaluation, collaboration. So there'll be an understanding that there will be, a monitoring and a discussion throughout this programme. We very much want to learn from this and gain more of an understanding as this goes on. We don't want to just give you money and then not hear from us at all. We're here to support and ensure that this programme is as much of a success as possible. So you will gain constant access to us as a hub to help with any issues, any problems which you may be having, and we'll work with you throughout the entire programme as well. Going into a bit of the technical area around the competition. So the programme, the competition itself launched on the 17th of March, and it will close on the 21st of April. All the programme documentation is on the Hub website. I've got links in the slide if anybody needs help finding it. All the applications will be scored by a panel put together by the Hub. A recommendation pack will then be sent through to the national panel, of which there will be a Midlands Net Zero Hub representation. That is a department-led national panel, and that will ensure that there is a diverse portfolio across all regions to ensure that not every region is running the same scheme. And then we'll enter into a process of co-design and refinement, ensuring that KPIs are fair across all proposals, and then we'll start preparing the projects for mobilisation, and that will happen from mid-May onwards. So I've kind of run through the timelines there as well. Like I say, the application assessment will happen from the 24th of April. We'll then be meeting as a national panel mid-May. We're hopeful that from June onwards, project delivery will start to begin with the grant agreement letters, data sharing, subsidy control elements all falling into place from kind of mid-May through to June onwards. And then the delivery period does end on the 31st of March 2025. Excellent. That was a very kind of high level run through. I appreciate I didn't go into loads of detail, but hopefully you've got questions to pick up with us and to run through. If you've got anything which isn't answered or you'd like more clarity around, do feel free to pop them in the Q&A. But yeah, at the moment, if you've got any additional questions and you think of them later on and you feel like you've missed your opportunity, do feel free to send through to the email addresses I've included there. We have a generic Local Energy Advice email address, which is perfect for any competition questions, because that way we can ensure that any competition questions which come through we can answer quickly. There are more people manning that. If you've got anything specific that you want to ask either myself or Bex, then do feel free to put that directly to us as well. We'll be able to support there as well. Fantastic. So that's the end of the presentation. I will go through onto the Q&A now, but do feel free to start asking questions. Hopefully we'll be able to answer a few. I think there has been a couple put in already, which is fantastic. I'm sure people are also bored of listening to me. So Bex, do you want to pick up the first question and then I can grab a glass of water as well?
Hi, yeah, no problem. So we've got, how many projects are you hoping to fund in the Midlands? So as we said, there's 2 million for the project, 1 million over each year, but that doesn't have to be what you apply for. You could apply for less. So we'd probably be hoping for a big one and a couple of smaller ones, but it really depends on what bids we get through, how many bids we get, and the different sort of proposals that are within those, but ideally sort of 3 projects or potentially more. Just having a look at the other questions.
There is a question there around, can private sector energy advisors be included within consortia? So yes, absolutely is the answer there. Private sector organisations can be included within consortia. There isn't a specific list of exactly what types of organisations can apply. So this is an open competition. We expect it to be a range of different partners who are interested in running these types of competitions and announcements. Excellent. I think actually there was a second question there around restrictions and the type of partners. So hopefully that kind of answers that as well. There aren't any restrictions specifically on the type of partners or type of organisations we're expecting to see through here.
Got another question here. Is 2 million for the Midlands or nationally? So the 2 million would be for the Midlands, but there is the capacity for more than that within the Midlands. So other hubs have a separate budget for that, and it's equitable.
May I just come in here to add to that? Thanks very much, Bex. And hi everyone, I'm Jacob from the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero. So that's the sort of maximum bid amount that we expect from anyone, 2 million over that period of 2 financial years. But the pot for the Midlands in total is up to 4 million, and that is the same amount that is available in the 4 other hub regions of England. So we're looking forward to having a range of different projects and different project sizes across England, but also within hub areas themselves. So hopefully that's a useful bit of extra detail.
That's great. Thanks ever so much, Jacob. There is a question around funding and the need for feasibility studies done beforehand. So as this is, the idea behind this is innovation, we're not expecting feasibility studies to be done before an application is made. If you're able to show that you've done some market engagement to understand whether this will be successful, that will benefit your application, but we're not expecting full or in-depth market studies or feasibility studies to be completed prior to an application bid going in.
Another question here, can the project be delivered across multiple local authority areas, or is it confined to individual authorities? That would be for the bid if you wanted to work within one local authority area, depending on the organisation that you're from and how much capacity you have and access to the region. So this bid would be for the Midlands region, and how you sort of put that forward in the bid. If you wanted to work with different areas within the Midlands, you're more than welcome to do that. What we're looking for is something, maybe a new approach or something to extend the existing services that you have that's quite innovative. So yeah, use your imagination within the Midlands area.
Thanks, Bex. There's a question here around what does comply with subsidy control regime mean? Now, I appreciate that is subsidy control is an interesting area. We would expect that all recipients would be able to confirm that their proposed approach complies with subsidy control regime. Now, obviously, that means that they're either going to be relying on minimum financial assistance rules to permit small subsidies, or ensuring that no subsidies are present, or ensuring that any subsidy complies with the subsidy principles. If there is a further conversation or question you have around specific issues on subsidy control, do feel free to send something specific through to us. Jacob, you've got your hand up there. Sorry, I wanted to.
Yeah. Just to add to that, Jack. Thanks very much. Yeah. No need to worry about this too much. Essentially, the funding that we're giving to organisations is a subsidy, because it is funding given from a public authority, that is the department, to organisations involved in an economic activity. The rules around this are quite strict as to what is and isn't an economic activity. Advice can be seen as an economic activity, but when we say that we want you to comply with subsidy control, essentially the department will produce some guidance which you can read in your own time, and just confirm that your proposal is compliant with that guidance. And it's not too onerous. A lot of it will just be about reporting your spend and ensuring that any requirements around transparency under that subsidy control regime are met. But yeah, we're doing all the hard work, and your responsibility as partner organisations is just to make sure that you fit in with that.
Excellent, thanks, Jacob. There's a question there around how much of the value chain is required to be covered by the bid. Do tender organisations need to, for example, define installers as part of the bid consortia, as a suffice to identify assigned partners by memorandum of understanding at tender stage. So that's a question with a couple of different parts there. So ideally, you will include all elements that require a cost within your application. So do go into detail when you are going through your bids to ensure that you capture all of your grant costs within that bid. There won't be an opportunity to request further funding later down the line if there are elements which have been missed for any reason within your application, because we do intend to allocate out all of the funding. So we'll be operating under some strict financial guidelines around that. So if there are additional elements that you can foresee would have costs in the supply chain, do include those within the bid.
Got a question here. Would we be working with specific clients and or properties, or would we need to reach out and find? So the clients would be generated by yourselves with your sort of advertising in the area, how well known the organisation is, but it does need to comply with the hard to treat and difficult to reach. That would be the specificity of the clients. But for you to sort of go out into your regions and your area to meet those people. And then we've got another one. What is the expected monitoring or reporting that is required for any successful bidders? Will you need a project lead for the application process? So there would need to be a project lead. They would be the ones submitting the bid. I believe they would be the ones that the funding would be, the grant application would be signed off with, subsidy control signed off with. And then regarding monitoring and reporting, that will be agreed upon later down the line across the whole UK. That is not something we've got a hard copy of, a finalised version of yet.
Thanks, Bex. A question around whether the advice needs to just from the initial interest all the way through to installation, or whether it can just be part of that. We're not expecting these bids to do a full run through of the process. If you are providing advice on specific areas, that is absolutely allowed. Obviously, the more advice you can give, the better. But if you are giving incredibly good advice on one specific area, that will also score very highly. So yeah, we're not expecting a full suite of advice to be given by every single partner here. There's another follow-up question around, as this is for face-to-face advice, can we exclude properties that aren't hard to treat or people who aren't hard to contact? Now, the program itself is for specifically those hard to treat or hard to reach areas. Naturally, if you are running an event and it's for a specific demographic and people outside that demographic do join, we're not expecting you to turn people away who are genuinely interested in learning around energy efficiency advice. It's around ensuring that the program and work that you do is focused on those areas, and we would expect your program to reflect that and to demonstrate that. We will not be policing to ensure that every piece of advice goes to specific hard to treat properties types. So if there is some overlap, then we're not expecting that to be the case. Jacob, did you put your hand up there? Sorry,
just briefly. Yeah, absolutely. Just to echo what Jack was saying. I think as he said, we want the principal focus of the advice given to be for hard to treat properties and harder to reach homeowners, but absolutely where those lines are drawn isn't always very exact, and yes, I think certainly within local communities there will be expected to be a mix of a mix of demographics, a mix of different audiences for advice. So we don't want it to be just exclusively those hard to reach groups. And one of the areas to think about for projects bidding in is how will you align with the digital and phone line service that government currently offers. And one way in which alignment might be demonstrated would be by encouraging people for whom internet usage is more easy, more accessible to use the online service, because it may be that for some consumers the online service will provide an adequate level of advice on what to do with their home. Possibly not for all, but yeah, I think certainly in terms of spreading out capacity and ensuring that you're not too overstretched, that might be one way of dealing with that challenge.
Thanks, Jacob. Lots more questions, so we'll just keep on answering until we run out, I guess. And then that doesn't look like it's going to happen. If at any point we run out of time or anything like that, or there are questions we don't get to, rest assured, like I say, we will be pulling all of the questions. We will be doing a formal FAQ document, and we'll be providing answers to any questions asked during this. So you will get an answer, even if it's not answered here and now. But we will continue and try and get through all of the things that have been asked. So there is a question around, there's lots of potential ideas with this. Are we open to early conversation around ideas? As this is a formal competition, we do have to be careful around what advice we give to any specific organisations. If you have any questions around the specific areas around the guidance, around whether your idea would fall within or without scope, I would refer you back to the call for documents, the guidance documents which are available. If you still feel that you're unclear and just require some additional clarity, please feel free to send it through to those email addresses, which will go round at the end of the webinar, and we'll try and answer it. It might well be that it's a question that we will answer and then post on the FAQ document as well.
Got another one here. Will there be several rounds of applications? 3 weeks isn't a lot of time, so there isn't any plans to have additional rounds of application. However, there will be a period of co-design where we can review the bid, look at sort of a few tweaks within there with limited, so some changes, but sort of working together on that. And of course, this is a demonstrator project, so it would be a case of seeing what is possible in the future, but there is no concrete answer on what is available in the future. At the moment, it is just those 3 weeks for the application.
There's a question around guidance says that expected that projects may be based and operate from the same locality. Can we clarify any geographic constrictions? In terms of geographic constrictions, we're not expecting there to be anything which is specifically out of bounds. This isn't a rural only programme, for example. All regions are allowed. There is obviously there are 5 hubs working this, so if there is a project which overlaps the other hub areas, we would discuss that at the national panel and work out how to, if that project was successful, how we would go around funding that from our different pots of money. So don't feel that you need to constrain yourself to geographic regions. If you have a great idea which overlaps, we will work with you to work out how that will go ahead. I think that's fair to say, Jacob. I might have, yeah, I'm getting the nod there. Perfect. Yeah, so we're willing to work with you around geographic constraints. Again, if you have any specific questions or worries, then do feel free to reach out to the email addresses, and we'll answer those offline if there is a specific worry that you'll have around the geography.
We've got, as an innovative solution, is there scope to partner with others, and how do we engage? So yeah, we welcome partnership bids. If you could form your own consortia of sorts, you're welcome to work with partners in your region around how to engage on that. I mean, if you've got existing partnerships with people that you work with, organisations that you already work with, that kind of thing, or reach out to people that you maybe want to work with. If there's something that you could co-design together, that is absolutely welcomed.
There's a question here around concerns about raising expectations by carrying out detailed advice then with no funding available to carry out the works. Now, that is always going to be a concern, but we feel like with the potential funding streams which are out at the moment, so there are HUG programs, there are the boiler upgrade scheme programs, there is other funding like Eco4 is still available. Sorry, I knew there was another one, I couldn't quite remember it straight away.
SHDF
and Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund. I knew that there were others and lots of people would join in. There are funding streams out there, and if you are able to link your programs and your projects into being able to offer better viewership of those programs, we feel like there's a good option there around being able to take this from advice through to installation and through to increasing the viability of these programs. So hopefully that would be provided through that, and obviously who knows what the future holds as well. Jacob's got his hand up as well. I think just got addition to add there.
Yeah, I thought it might be useful to give a sort of a broader departmental angle on that point. I think the person who posed the question is absolutely right that retrofit can be very expensive, and for those quite substantial group in the middle of the one extreme, people who are wealthy enough to pay for passive house standard retrofit, and then on the other side, people who are in social housing who would qualify for things like eco and SHDF. There is a substantial middle group of people who don't necessarily qualify for capital schemes, but also don't necessarily have the funding to personal savings to pay for retrofit. I think it's a problem that we're thinking about very seriously in government, and for example, we're thinking about potential solutions both in expanding existing capital schemes, but also in investing in new green finance products to enable households to pursue a green lending product to assist with the cost of a retrofit. And we're running a green finance accelerator program at the moment to promote innovation in that area. So it is a problem we're aware of. It's something we're thinking about. I suppose another way of looking at it would be that if you're planning on staying in a house long term, then not all of these changes that might be brought up and recommended by advice would have to be installed immediately. I'm thinking certainly of case studies of people that have appeared from some research we've done in this area that have shown that when given a whole house plan, people have thought iteratively about, oh, okay, I can get some insulation now, and then maybe in 10 years time I'll be able to put a heat pump in. So I think yeah, just it's very much a sort of journey. It's a staged journey to 2050 to net zero. So just thought it would be helpful to give a bit of an overview of our thinking there.
Fantastic, thanks, Jacob. There are some questions around funding that we will take away. Specifically, there's a question around the funding being split 50-50, but obviously there are 10 months in year 1, 12 months in year 2, and how that split will work over the 2 years. Now, at its current iteration, it will just be a 50-50 split. If there is a a very strong case for you needing to change that, then that is something that we might be able to discuss within the co-design, but we would prefer it to leave it as 50-50 split predominantly going forward. There's another question around, are we looking for projects which are readily transferable elsewhere? So as part of this, we are looking at projects which could become self-sustaining after the 2-year period. That isn't part of the competition, but it's something which could be beneficial going forward, because we'd love to see these types of programs carrying on after the program length. So if you're able to demonstrate how that would happen, it won't be scored, but we would be interested in those types of projects.
It will be scored. Sorry, Jack.
Sorry, Jacob. That's right. No, it's fine.
It will be scored, but only a very small percentage of the overall scoring methodology.
Excellent. Thank you for the clarity there. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Excellent. Bex, did you have a question lined up? Allow me to try and find one.
Yeah, just having a look. Can we link this work we're doing with building society product and promoting it to first-time buyers? I'm not 100% sure on that one. It's I think it needs to just be the sort of hard to reach and you know, the sort of the face-to-face. If they come under those criteria, then it's not, you don't need to exclude them. But I'm not 100% sure what that question means by link with it. So sorry about that. I could take that away, or if you email us about that in more detail, I could perhaps answer that a bit better.
Yeah, I think the advice given needs to be free, and I think that there might be questions around the impartiality of advice if it is linked to a specific financial product. But yeah, if you wanted to get in touch with the Midlands Hub, they'd be able to respond in more detail to that. And another question is just, if I may, just popped up on the list about what is face-to-face advice. What is the scope of this? Well, it essentially, this comes out of some research that government has done showing that many consumer types, including those who are harder to reach and those who live in harder to treat properties, benefit from in-person advice specifically, as opposed to telephone or digital advice. And we're not being too prescriptive about what that looks like in practice. It may be that there is a sort of energy cafe style setup where some advisors are installed in a village hall or a community centre or something like that, and they are open to the public and they give advice in that way. It's a sort of drop-in session. Alternatively, you could have in-person home visits, home assessments, home surveys. That counts as advice. But I think the key thing really is that it has to be impartial and it has to be free, and that's important because it's important to maintain consumer trust in the advice that is being given. So hopefully that helps.
Excellent, thanks, Jacob. Yeah, it does help. A question there around, is there an interest in generating requests for advice? So looking at community engagement for the hard to reach, as well as actually providing it. Absolutely. I think it would go hand in hand with the type of project which is giving advice to the hard to reach areas, that we would expect some sort of outreach and community engagement to be part of those types of projects. So we would encourage that to form part of any sort of project proposal which you're putting forward. And then there's also a question linked to that which says, can we share the evaluation criteria for the bids? scoring breakdown is part of the application document. So on each section of the application document, it says the percentage which that section is weighted. So 20 for the project team, 50% for the proposal, I think it's 10% for monitoring and reporting, so on and so forth. So you get an idea around what the weighting is for each of those bids, and then they will be done simply on a 0 to 5 method, with the highest score, once the weighting has been taken into account, being successful. So that will be how the scoring methodology will work for the bids, and we will be doing that. Like I say, there'll be a board made up who will score each of the bids. There'll be mediation meetings to ensure everything is agreed on, that there isn't any vast disparities between such scoring, and those will take place once all of the applications are in, and we'll be able to review each application against the others. And then those will then form part of the recommendation pack, which will be put towards the national panel to ensure there is a good variety of projects throughout England. I've done 2, so Bex, did you want to take the next one?
Yeah, I'm just having a look through it. The new questions. So the nature of providing in-person advice suggests that many applicants may need to resource up to deliver a new project once a grant is awarded. So just asking about if that can be factored in, and looking at sort of resourcing. So obviously that would still be the split in spend over the years, as Jack mentioned earlier. There would also be a period of co-design and sort of slowly increasing capacity over in the initial part of the project, and then potentially doing more delivery in the second year, but the funding would still be capped unless it was sort of extenuating circumstances, as Jack mentioned earlier, but that can be planned into the delivery of the project and how you put that together in the bid.
Absolutely, yeah. Slightly linked to that, there's a great question there around Footsteps, which has been running an Energy Champion initiative for 6 months for disadvantaged areas of Birmingham. They're finding that most people in these communities are struggling to make ends meet, often in private rented properties. Their experience that the cost per successful intervention will be high, as the number of people able to complete installation would not be high. Digital exclusion is also a major issue. So the question is, would a bid with a high cost per intervention be considered? And the answer is yes, it would be. So the cost section, we were very keen on this. Our cost section is purposefully scored one of the lowest throughout the entire bid. We are not looking at a cost per intervention as the overarching factor within the cost scoring either. We are not excluding any bids because they are going to be costly. The idea is to drive innovation. So if there is a way that these interventions will be successful, or there is a better way of running these interventions, we absolutely want to see it, and we don't want to exclude anything because they're going to be expensive. So in short, do continue with your bids even if you're worried that they're going to be expensive. We are here to test out these ideas and to see how we would work these in the best possible way in the future. There's a follow-on question. What would central government see as a primary outcome of this project? Not to put you on the spot, Jacob, but I'm going to bat this one straight over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem at all. Yeah, well, I think what we see as essential and important outcome of these projects are the production of the provision of findings from these innovative projects that will then provide an evidence base for wider action nationally after 2025. As I say, I think there's a recognition that there are specific advice needs for specific groups of consumers and specific housing typologies, and through this program we want to find out what works well and use that information for a future spending review bid, essentially for more funding for advice.
Excellent. Thank you, Jacob. Just putting out a quick call for questions, because obviously we're nearing the end here. If there's any other questions which you've been thinking about, you don't know what to ask, do feel free to put them in the chat now. If there are any questions which we haven't answered, it may just be that we haven't got the answer for you just yet. Like I say, all the questions have come through, so we will be taking some of the questions away, and rather than three of us sitting here going, we don't know, we'll take them away, we'll find an answer for you and we will publish them. If you need an answer urgently, we will be trying our best to get the turnaround on the FAQ document together within the week. So we're aiming to have the answers for most of the questions published by middle of next week. So hopefully that will help in any of the questions you may have. So there is a question around how long the co-design period would take, and would we be expected to launch service before this step was completed? We are aiming to be able to notify successful projects by the middle of May. And once we're able to notify the successful projects, that period of co-design will take place. That will take place as we're doing things like putting together the grant letter agreements, we're putting together the data sharing agreements with everybody as well. So there will be an overlap of work happening during that period, and we'll be fine-tuning and tweaking your applications to ensure they're robust enough for the coming years, or if there's anything which overlaps with another project specifically and we just want to try and make sure that there's not two competing schemes happening at the same place, we'll be able to talk about that. In terms of co-design, we're not looking at overhauling any particular project during that period. We will be just making fine-tuning arrangements and ensuring that the KPIs are fair compared to your counterparts who are also delivering the projects. So we don't expect that to be a lengthy process which goes into too much detail. We wouldn't expect you to launch the programme whilst that is still taking place. So we will have a finalised idea around what that would look like in place before you would press launch. However, obviously, this is going to be an ongoing live programme. Things may arise during the programme which need working on. We understand that not everything is always as set in stone as you would like it to be. If there are things which happen during the programme, come to us, talk to us, we'll work it out, and we'll work out a solution to those programmes as we go along.
There's a few questions early on,
Okay.
Jack, which I'm happy to provide a quick answer to.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody asked, is the project funding for revenue only? Yes, this is a revenue funded project. Can funding cover some equipment as well as staff costs and expenses? Yes, anything that is in the interests of in-person advice would be happy to fund within the programme. Is there interest in advice and support on installs beyond just linking to Trustmark registered suppliers? For example, looking over quotes, advising on coordination between installers. Possibly. There are certain restrictions around signposting to the private sector that we need to be a bit cautious about. I think generally speaking, we'd be looking for end-to-end support for consumers planning a retrofit, but I think we'd we'd want to just be a bit careful about what sort of advice is given when it comes to specific organisations. So you, for example, you could give a sort of an advice to a consumer. Oh, you might want to get quotes from several different contractors for this measure, but yeah, I don't think we'd be keen for people for advice organisations to be saying, oh, choose this contractor, they're good, or let me have a look at your quote from this one contractor. I think we just need to be a bit cautious there. Can the funding be used to pay for retrofit assessments and energy audits? Yes. It sort of depends on the situation, I think, but yeah, that is absolutely an area of advice that can be funded under the programme. I'm conscious of time, so I'll hand back to Jack in case there's any final questions that he'd like to answer.
No, absolutely. Thanks ever so much, Jacob. Yeah, as the questions came in, it might be that one or two of those slip through. Like I say, we will answer all of them. We promise. There was a question there around when we're talking about face-to-face, how do we mean face-to-face? Can we include multi-targeting social media and other methods along those lines? We would, when we're talking face-to-face, we would predominantly like it to be physical, person-to-person action and discussion. Obviously, that can be supplemented with additional work. We appreciate that without just sending people roving in the streets, you need to be able to market and ensure that people know about whatever events and programs that you're running. So there will be some level of digital phone marketing exposure out there as well. So the focus really is on providing that advice in person. However, because the online and the telephone advice is being provided by the .gov website. Okay. Just going to have a quick run through of any questions which we're able to answer. Oh, there was one last question here which I can see around the approach to funding continuation and scaling up of existing projects, or whether there needs to be a novel aspect. Obviously, the design behind the programme is to look at innovation and to look at new ways of providing energy advice to these hard to treat regions. So we would like to see some innovation within all of the programs and the projects which are going to be put forward. That doesn't necessarily mean that if you have a project which is working incredibly well somewhere, that the novel aspect or the innovative aspect of that can't be utilising what is working well in a different scenario or a different working. We're not saying that we need you to remove everything which has worked well on your previous projects to come up with something new for the sake of new. We would just like some consideration around innovation to be made for all projects. Excellent. I can't see any which I can answer just yet. I think there's one which Jacob is replying to on the chat, on the question and answer function. And I won't ask him to answer that in person if he doesn't want to. But if we're there, then I think we might start wrapping up as well. So once again, I just want to say thank you to everybody for attending. It's been fantastic to see so many people engage with this process. I think it's a brilliant programme, and we're really excited to be hosting it here at the Midlands Net Zero Hub. It's an area which is incredibly important. I think everybody here understands that, knows that, and I wanted to ensure that we are really interested in seeing what comes forward here from yourselves and what ideas you bring to this competition. We're really excited to see what happens. If there are any other questions you think of or anything else you want some clarity on, do feel free to reach out to us. We are absolutely willing to help and support where we can, obviously within the confines of a fair and transparent competition. So yeah, really excited to see where this goes. I will hand over to Michael just to do any wrapping up or closing remarks as well.
Thanks, Jack. Just on a practical note, the last slide had email addresses on it.
Yeah.
There is the competition email address, which will be used for the duration of the project. Obviously, Jack bravely put his and Rebecca's, Bex's email address on there as well. If we can just make sure that the competition email address is utilised. If there is something directed to Jack or Bex, CC that competition email address, just in case somebody is on leave, so that we can make sure that your query is picked up, particularly in the run up to actually submitting the application, as we wouldn't want to cause a delay if somebody is off for any particular reason. So just a practical note to end on. But just to echo Jack's comments, thank you everybody for coming along. We've had good attendance today, lots of interest, lots of really good questions. And my thanks to Jack, Bex, Catherine for sorting this out, and Jacob, who's supported and answered from the department today as well. So thank you. Thank you, everybody.